I'd like to welcome Lee Morrow. Lee is the press secretary for Network, the lobby for Catholic social justice and Nuns on the Bus. Lee also consults for Health Justice for All PAC and Freedom Dividend PAC to help elect candidates committed to social justice. Prior to Network, Lee was campaign manager for Massachusetts State Senator Eric Lesser, an Obama administration official. Lee attended Harvard University, where he was active at the Harvard Institute of Politics and Kirkland House. And his talk will explore unique opportunities for faith organizations to get media attention, from Nuns on the Bus and Catholic Days of Action. Let's welcome Lee Morrow.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming today, and thank you, Gary, for that introduction. My name is Lee Morrow, and I'm the press secretary for Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice. Today, I'll be talking about the lessons that Network has learned from our Nuns on the Bus campaign and how faith-based organizations can break through the media noise. And there'll be time at the end for questions. See if this clicker works. There we go. So I'll start by giving a bit of history of Nuns on the Bus and why we started it. Then I'll explain what we learned through our 6 national tours. I'll then provide 2 case studies of how faith-based organizations can make news, one from Network and another from the Catholic Coalition. At the end, I'll discuss what's next for Network and other opportunities for groups like yours. So, a bit of background on me. I come from a political background. Before Network, I worked on political campaigns in Massachusetts mostly. I worked in a Boston mayor's race, a Massachusetts governor's race, and I ran a state senate race in Western Massachusetts. I also currently consult for Health Justice for All, a PAC that works to elect candidates who support lowering drug prices and providing health care for all. So I came to Network in 2018, so pretty recently, where I run press operations. That means I place pieces, I write op-eds, and I manage interviews for Network sisters. Because of my background, I work to expand Network's coverage and reach to national and political reporters. So, I first learned about Network in 2012 with the first Nuns on the Bus tour. That tour was born out of a very tumultuous time. As many of you know all too well, in April 2012, the Vatican reprimanded the LCWR and Network specifically for focusing too much on social justice issues. I know. This was a huge blow to Network. Our 40-year mission had been to focus on ending inequality, but the church was saying that this was wrong. I know that this led to a lot of soul searching in the office, and in the end, Network knew it couldn't turn away from its mission. So we decided to turn obstacle into opportunity and act in accordance with our principles. So, a nationwide bus tour certainly wasn't the first thing that came to mind in those brainstorm sessions, but we knew that the staff knew that they needed to do something big that was focused on social justice. Couldn't be an impersonal press conference or another letter. Sister Simone's career had been based on the idea of embracing encounter, so we knew we had to do that with whatever we do. She had worked as a family lawyer, becoming close to her clients, and at Network, when she lobbied Congress, she always brought a story of encounter with her. The only way to get past partisanship is to tell real stories of people's lives. So she knew that whatever Network did, it needed to embrace encounter. And critically, it had to be interesting. And what's more interesting than a group of Catholic sisters going on a nationwide bus tour? So, it's kind of a mystery who exactly shouted out the idea of doing a big bus tour, but it was decided that Network could create Nuns on the Bus and focus on the need for a moral federal budget for our first tour. The bus would travel to 9 states over 15 days. This really was a harebrained idea. The staff had no idea how to run a bus tour, no idea if anyone would be willing to meet us on the road, and no clue if this could get any press at all. It was a leap of faith, but we were rewarded. Nuns on the Bus sparked the imagination, and it was embraced by friends around the country, and it has helped us spread the message of social justice. We learned a lot about how to break through the media noise on that first trip, and we're still learning with each new tour. So, we've held 6 Nuns on the Bus tours so far. At this point, our bus has traveled to almost every state in the Union. Someday we'll get Hawaii and Alaska. We'll get there. Our trips range from half a month to a full month on the road, and we typically have a group of 10 sisters on the bus at any one time, and we switch off every week as we travel the country. Staff like me and Sister Simone stay on the bus the entire time to provide support. The very first Nuns on the Bus tour was called Nuns Drive for Faith, Family, and Fairness. The message of this tour was that our national budget is a moral document that shows the things our country really cares about. At that time, Paul Ryan was running the budget process in Congress, and he publicly used his Catholic faith to justify budget cuts. Network wanted to show another way. Being 2012, the press was, of course, very interested in the Vatican reprimand and also the Paul Ryan angle. So it was our job to combine the two narratives together by highlighting the social justice ministries that the sisters on the bus worked in, while making the point that the social justice policies of our government require federal funding. By the end of the tour, we had turned the new press attention away from the Vatican angle and towards social justice. Our next tour, 1 year later, was titled Nuns Drive for Faith, Family, and Citizenship. This tour came during the important immigration reform negotiations in Congress. We started at Angel Island in San Francisco and finished at Ellis Island in New York. We partnered with immigration groups and shared stories of sisters who work with immigrants and refugees every day. This is our first long tour. It was 22 days, and we picked up sisters along the way. The next tour, in 2014, was titled We the People, We the Voters. This tour took place during the 2014 midterm elections and focused on civic engagement and money in politics. By 2014, it was pretty clear that big money had taken over politics and was influencing both legislation and elections. Network works to mend the wealth gap and create a faithful budget. But with the Citizens United ruling, there was no way to overcome money's power in politics without everyone voting. So, Nuns on the Bus hit the road to register as many people as possible. 2015, the tour was titled Bridge the Divides, Transform Politics. This one was scheduled around Pope Francis's visit to the United States. And the goal was to take Pope Francis's message to change our politics, not just our policies, to states where he couldn't visit during his tour. During the bus journey, the sisters connected with people in our nation's heartland and to hear about the injustices that they encounter daily. The sisters then took those stories to Congress to further strengthen the Pope's bold call to end polarization and gridlock. 2016 was, of course, our presidential election year. The Nuns on the Bus tour was titled Mend the Gaps, and it called on the presidential candidates to mend the gaps in income and wealth inequality in our nation. The bus visited both the Republican and Democratic conventions to call on the candidates to bridge the divides that hurt us all. We couldn't actually get the bus, let me show you. Couldn't actually get the bus at the Republican convention because they didn't have parking. So what happened was they built this little trolley and did lemonade ministry outside of the convention and handed out lemonade to people passing by and told them about Nuns on the Bus. 2018. So our most recent Nuns on the Bus tour was the Tax Justice Truth Tour. We traveled from coast to coast, starting Los Angeles and ending at Mar-a-Lago. This is our longest tour yet. We traveled 5,600 miles. We held 54 events in 41 cities across 21 states over the course of 27 days. I had to practice that a lot of numbers. So we'll take a closer look at this tour in just a second. It's one of the case studies. So, what did we learn from these 6 Nuns on the Bus tours? A lot. I'm going to talk about the 3 big things that we learned that help us break through the noise to get press coverage, but first, a word about setting up a foundation for success. Running a giant tour like this is really hard. Having support is critical. So we partner with a firm that specializes in large-scale bus tours to help obtain the bus, the driver. They manage advanced staff who arrive at each stop before the bus in order to set up. and they help optimize our route. Turns out it's really hard to get a giant bus down tiny roads, and when we do it ourselves, it doesn't work very well. And don't even get me started on parking. So they're very helpful. These tours also have a foundation of staff, and this is really important. Our organizers at Network set up every stop, building relationships with partners around the country, with folks who are working on these issues. And those relationships last. We meet them for Nuns on the Bus, and then we work with them for the rest of our time working on these issues. They would also make sure that we have signs, t-shirts, and other collateral that make our public events look good. Our government relations staff made sure that elected officials would come and participate in our events. And I would work with local and national press to make sure that there are actually reporters and cameras at our daily press conferences. Be sending out hundreds of press advisories and pitching producers everywhere we went. So your organization may not plan on running any nationwide bus tours like this, but if you want your events to be successful, you do need to build a strong foundation. So with those in mind, the three main lessons we learned from the bus are the importance of optics, utility, and partners. Optics is really easy. No cameras are going to want to come to an event unless it looks good. That's why we bring the bus everywhere. With the beautiful bus in the background, the media will want to send cameras. It's also why we brand each tour with specific colors, fonts, and signs. If all of your materials look good together, you're much more likely to get covered. The next is utility. The bus obviously helps us move around the country, but it has another important use. It's a ready-made press conference spot. No matter where we go, from a field in Iowa to a parking lot in Las Vegas, and we did both of these, we can park the bus, set up a podium, and hold a good-looking press conference. Without a public portion of your event held outside, you're going to find it challenging to get coverage, especially from TV stations. Producers and photographers are much more likely to cover your event if there's a backdrop that they can easily travel to and get a quick shot. The third lesson is the importance of partners. Because Network works with Congress, we're able to get partners with local officials and elected officials all across the country. If you have an elected, you're almost guaranteed to get press coverage. Editors will almost always send somebody. It may be just a new cub reporter, but somebody will probably be there. We also partner with local celebrities, like Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries. If you can put a recognizable name in your press advisory, you're much more likely to catch the eye of a producer or reporter. So, on to the case studies. Let's dive a little deeper into the most recent Nuns on the Bus tour. On the Tax Justice True Tour, we thought about local press and national press differently, and this is the first time we've done this. I focused on national press, and another comms team member focused on local event coverage. She would do the daily pitches to producers as we moved into other media markets, and I focused on bigger fish. That allowed me to try out new tactics because doing the daily press is a grind. It's a lot of work every time you go somewhere to send out an advisory. So having two people was super helpful. I was able to do things like embed a magazine reporter who rode with us and expand our reach to new outlets. We also designed a brand that was consistent across our bus and materials. You can kind of see that. Green, blue, red. So you can get a grasp on what the tour looked like. I'm going to show you the wrap-up video that we created at the end of the tour. If I can get it working.
We're on a road for justice, and this is the last march. I can't believe it. We're here. We worked 27 days for this moment, so we want to savor every moment.
We the people can make a change. We the people can make it different. We can vote, we can change our representatives, but we can also make sure that whoever is our representative, we engage and insist that they work for the common good.
We vow to support a bigger, more kind, and generous vision for America.
We are sick and tired of hearing our elected representatives say one thing to us and then act a different way in Washington, make promises here at home, and then take votes that hurt
Amen.
the least fortunate among us.
And it's only when we each individually, as normal people, take responsibility that change will come.
November 6th was a great day for us where we moved our nation forward. We reclaimed our democracy. This bus, with all of the thousands of signatures on it, is the direct counterpoint to Mar-a-Lago. And the thousands of signatures on this bus, this is we the people standing up, saying we're in it together. We care for the 100% in our nation. That's what we're about. It's that message that we've got to take to newly elected.
It's a nice video, right? Bring somebody who can shoot video during anything, any event that you can do. Bring somebody who's going to take video. So on to optics. I'm mostly showing this picture because I wanted to show off the beautiful bus a little bit more. That's me behind the dog. Past buses had designs that focused on message more than boldness. And with this bus, we tried to keep it pretty simple. By using 3 colors and clean, bold fonts, the press wanted to show off the bus. This tour, also, we tried to make the media's job easier for them. I sent all of our advisories and post-event press releases with Flickr albums of photos from the events that they could download from, B-roll of the bus, and live recordings from the events. The bus is also perfect for crowd shots. With good branding, you can still make out our message even from far away. So we could park the bus anywhere and get attention. As a side note, I paid close attention to local happenings as we drove around. So for example, when we were going through New York, Donald Trump Jr. was holding an event nearby. And normally, that would mean his event would overshadow us because he's national news, and we'd get no coverage. But I was able to pitch reporters about our bus and include photos, and our bus and tour was included in multiple stories about Don Jr. as contrast. If we hadn't had a bus that looked really interesting, the reporters would have been entirely focused on the bigger national story. The bus also works really well for close shots. Photographers love to get shots of folks signing the bus. Adding an interactive piece that gets the crowd to do something other than stand and watch a press conference really makes the event more appealing to the press. On to utility. So here's a picture of what I think shows press utility of the bus really well. This press conference took place outside a community center for immigrant children near Orlando. Because of the bus, you can't tell that this is an empty parking lot. If I had to pitch press to come to a press conference in a parking lot of a community center, they may not be interested in traveling all the way there. Because we come with our own beautiful background, we get coverage. A side note on the press, if they weren't biting, we could always self-publish. So we wrote blogs, created videos, and took our own photos. This content could be shared on social media and still look really good. And importantly, I can share that content with reporters to try to get a second bite at the apple. Because we usually held multiple events in one city, showing reporters what they missed the first time and giving them a second chance can usually have pretty good results. Next is partners. Because of our work with Congress, Network is able to partner with electeds who are very enticing to the press, so like Vice President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, but those opportunities are really few and far between. We like to hype them up when we can get them, but that's not normal. Each tour includes dozens of events that we want coverage of, and we're not gonna get people like that at each one. So, that's why we also have partners at every stop. In Las Vegas, we partnered with the Culinary Union 226, and we worked with them to get press. They have great press relations with the local people. And in Los Angeles, we partnered with Homeboy Industries, and local press loves to cover Homeboy Industries. So they're like an example of, you find somebody the local press is really interested in, and partner with them as long as they believe the same things you believe. So everywhere we went, we'd partner with local groups, and local folks always have the best media relationships, so combining forces with them is almost always beneficial. So the results. Our tour had over 420 press hits, including Huffington Post, Bustle, Now This, The Hill, The Nation, MSNBC. We built new relationships with key producers and reporters. Something to know about producers is there's a lot of overturn, so especially with cable. So building new relationships constantly is pretty important because maybe your person there from last year is not there anymore. So something to know. And we also targeted a younger audience. So Bustle, that's an online outlet for young women. And Now This is a digital video outlet with a huge media following, millions of folks. So each of these press hits open up network to an entirely new audience. So here are some of the local highlights. We got press in every state we visited, from California all the way over here. Then we traveled up and down over to here to Florida. But you obviously don't need a bus to get press coverage. Bus tour is really expensive, and it takes a lot of work in a time where we all have very limited bandwidth. You can achieve similar results by using your group's unique voice in a creative way. Our next case study did this really well. So, let's take a look at the Catholic Day of Action. Earlier this summer, the Catholic Coalition came together to create the Catholic Day of Action. Network was proud to join this event as partners, but I can't take any of the credit for planning. This event was created in response to the Trump administration's anti-immigrant policies that have led to the deaths of multiple children in government custody. This event took place on Capitol Hill and included civil disobedience. Their tactics successfully incorporated interesting optics, provided accessible utility for press, and utilized exciting partners. They were able to capture the attention of national press and break through the noise. So here's a video to show you what all that looked like.
This morning, almost 200 Catholics gathered on the lawn of the U.S. Capitol to protest the conditions in the migrant camps at the border. These included women religious, lay people, and members of the clergy, 70 of whom were arrested after they refused to leave the rotunda of the Russell Senate Office building.
We summon your spirit today to bless our brothers and sisters who stand and
Why this format for a protest? Why occupy the rotunda of the Russell building?
I think this was to kind of raise the ante, to call more attention to it, specifically to say that Catholics are standing up, are taking action, are risking arrest, are coming to Washington to send a very specific message. We really want an end to children in immigrant detention, that we want the end of families being split up. Right now, the reality is we do have children in detention. We want families to be able to remain together. We want people to be able to exist in humane conditions where they can be able to care for themselves, meet their basic needs, not live in horrific conditions where they don't have access to things like toothpaste or showers or the ability to clean themselves or use the restroom, things like that. So that's kind of a bottom line, but in the end, we're hopeful that we can come up with a system where we're not detaining children.
For months, the events at the southern border have broken our hearts and stoked our anger. The conditions our children face at the border is a stark reminder, as we just heard, of the moral bankruptcy of our current immigration policy. It is wrong and it must stop.
A lot of times you hear people say the church is not engaged, and I actually think that the church is very engaged, and this is kind of illuminates that engagement.
For American Media, I'm Colleen Dully.
No more deportations! No more deportations!
optics of this event really forced the media to pay attention, and I think you could see that. When Catholic leaders, many in religious garb, control a space that they are not normally seen in, like the halls of the Capitol, that is an inherently interesting image. Each participant also wore a photo of an immigrant child who had died in custody, ensuring that every press photo included the main message of the day. Civil disobedience also demanded coverage. When police handcuffed Catholic leaders laying on the floor of the halls of government in the shape of a cross, that is almost guaranteed to be photographed. These are the kinds of images that can break through a busy news day. Editors look for striking images like this to include in their pieces because they get people to stop scrolling through their news feeds and take notice. This event also provided accessible utility to the press with big outside press conference before going into the Capitol. This included partner speakers, prayers, and song. By being outside, television cameras were able to get clear audio of the message before going inside for B-roll, where it's much harder to make out voices, and they couldn't get speeches in there very well. So it was really important for them to be able to get the message part first. Producers also loved the singing, and many included it in their packages that ran on the nightly news. The press conference also made effective use of signs and banners, making the crowd look even bigger than it already was. So partnership came really naturally to this event. The Catholic Coalition is made up of many groups, so many of the partners were already baked in. Each partner provided a leader for the press conference, and many assisted with pitching the press. Naming these leaders in the advisory and post-event press release also intrigued many reporters. They may not know every faith leader, but they might know one, and that'll catch their eye. Partners. You can also find partners in really unexpected places. I don't know if you can see this. That's Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. Mark was really interested in the video of Sister Quincy. She's a network staff member and nun on the bus, getting arrested, and he shared it with his 3.3 million followers. It was a big surprise to us. We don't already have a connection with Mark Hamill. And I was able to send his tweet to reporters, and that gained even more interest in the event, especially from folks who don't normally cover religion. They're like, what the heck is this? Also, Sister Quincy now knows Luke Skywalker, which is pretty cool. So results. This single event, just one event, had 123 press hits. It ran in the Washington Post, Associated Press, ABC, Fox News, Huffington Post, Telemundo, and many more. And now they're building a movement. They have events all across the country. They recently had one in Newark. They're doing one in Texas. And they're building on what they created here. And this was really interesting because they did a lot of targeting to national press. So what Network did on their Nuns on the Bus tour was we would target new outlets to try to reach new audiences. And these folks targeted really traditional outlets, and it brought their image up a ton because folks didn't already know who the Catholic Coalition was, and now they do. So, what's next? I hope that these case studies showed very different ways to hold press events while still keeping in mind the optics, utility, and partners. So what's next? How will you create an event that is sure to get coverage? The most important thing you can do is think about your unique voice. Most reporters have no idea what Catholic sisters do. Many assume you're like Sally Field in The Flying Nun. They have no idea. You can use that to your advantage. So when Network put a bunch of Catholic sisters on a nationwide bus tour, that broke the expectations of reporters. The same goes with Catholic leaders getting arrested on Capitol Hill. Breaking those expectations is the best way to catch reporters' attention and get coverage. Oh, uh-oh. Sorry. A little bit more. So, think about your work. Find where you are most called to speak out, and think of creative ways to speak that break expectations. And when you hold your event, think about the optics. What do cameras want to see, and what will force people to take notice? Provide utility. Make it easy for reporters to cover you. Send an advisory, remind them, keep pestering them. Include a public portion, ideally outside. Cameras, it's hard for them always to shoot inside, the lighting isn't always good, so outside is better. And share your own photos and videos with reporters after the event. I can't tell you how many times Network has held an event that nobody came to, but then when we sent them the materials, they'll write it up. They'll do a story as if they were there. That's very common. And utilize partners. Include folks who will interest the media. Ask for their help sending out the advisory. They might have great relationships. And make sure to tell reporters that your partners will be there. Include them in the advisory and include them in the post-event press release. Send a press release after your event. Make sure reporters see it. And finally, turn your event into a movement. Take what you learned from the last event to build on it for your next. That's what Nuns on the Bus is. That's what the Coalition is doing for the Catholic Days of Action. Once you've built the foundation, each subsequent event will be better than the last. So, thank you all for having me. If you want to follow me on social media, that's my social media. And now I'm going to open up to questions. I left a lot of time for questions. If people have general press questions, they don't have to be about Nuns on the Bus, whatever it is you're interested in on press.
Thank you so much. That's all of it. My brain is just spinning right now, and my communications team is fearing what I'm thinking. But you had mentioned it was very expensive. And would you be willing to share the budget of this entire program? And then possibly what you feel you gained from it to justify it?
Yeah, I don't actually know the budget of the program, but I do know it was really expensive, and they spent a lot of time. Before each Nuns on the Bus is decided that we're actually going to do it, development raises for it first to make sure that that's actually feasible. So if somebody has a great idea for a big giant thing, talk to development first, see if they can afford it, and then move from there. How did it make it worth it? So it has brought in more followers on social media, and it has expanded our email list. We have more personal connections with folks across the country, and our network membership has expanded and expands exponentially each time we do a tour. So just the new folks that it brings in who become regular donating members and things like that, it makes up for it over time. Anybody else? All right, well, thank y'all very much for having me. I'll be around, so come on over and talk anytime. Thank y'all.